If you like what you hear in this podcast and want to help us keep the lights on, then you could support us on Ko-fi for as little as a £1 one-off donation. The links are in the episode description. Thanks for your support. This is Skip, the podcast where we tell you, in our opinion, which albums are unskippable and which ones belong in the skip. I'm Mike.
I'm Rob.
And this week, it is this week, because we are actually releasing weekly, we've decided, and you'll know by this point, because we've done it for ages, but it's new to us. This week, we are talking about A Grand Don't Come for Free. That is by The Streets, and that has been suggested by Mitch from Kidderminster.
So, he actually gave us a nice little comment about the album. He said it is a modern-day poet telling a relatable working-class story over some heavy and self-produced beats.
You know what? As descriptions go, what I didn't expect for him was to write the world's smallest Wikipedia entry for it, but he hits it out on the head. That's exactly what the record is.
He couldn't have put it into better words.
I know. Most people just send, because it's class.
It's a good album.
I like it. Some of the suggestions we've had, and some people are literally just like...
I mean, always get your comments in on why it's a standout album for you. I prefer that to nothing and us have to, come up with something on the spot.
Yeah, hell yeah. And thank you, everybody, because we've now got, I want to say 60-something suggestions, which would put us at over a year's worth of content. And that's not even factoring any surprises that we might have for you come the end of the year. So thank you, everybody that's kind of gotten involved so far. It's really great. And the interesting thing, we'll get to the album in a minute. The interesting thing is that we've only had 2 repeat albums over 60 plus suggestions, which is crazy. And it tells you about the breadth of music that's been suggested and the breadth of artists that all you guys are into. And moreover, you've all got different opinions, which is fantastic, and it's exactly why we wanted to make the show.
And we've both really enjoyed listening to your suggestions as well. I mean,
apart from Ed Sheeran. Sorry to throw it under the bus again.
So Mike wasn't a big fan of Ed Sheeran. I'm sorry if you haven't listened to that episode, but we've just kind of spoilt that for you.
The episodes are numbered, come on.
True. But yeah, we really appreciate every suggestion coming through. We've had a while of a time listening to some of them. Some of them have been quite well received, considering that we went into them thinking a bit like, what even is this? But it's really opened up our eyes to the breadth of music that's available and what we've been missing out on all these years. But of course, we always have room for more suggestions. So if you do want to get any more suggestions in, then please send us a nice email to skippedpod@gmail.com. That's skippedpod, drop the E, @gmail.com.
Excellent. You can just go to the link tree as well, and there is also a form if you are allergic to emails. So that's good. That link tree, I've got to tell you, it's free, it's stupid, but a lot of people are going through it, and I'm really pleased about that because I put it on every post.
Way.
So you're all actually engaging, and I love you all. You're fantastic. So, The Streets is a band, sort of. It's more of a project run by Mike Skinner, who is from round here originally.
We say around here.
He's
from Birmingham.
He's a Brummie. He's not Black Country, but when they're successful, we take him. It's
true.
Ozzy was ours because he was successful.
It's like who's that tennis player from Scotland?
Andy Murray, he's British when he wins and Scottish when he loses.
No, he's Scottish when he wins. He's British when he loses. It's the other way.
Right, because we revel in disappointment. Exactly. Got it. So, The Streets, I think, I very vividly remember this music being everywhere in 2004 when the album released, because it became sort of a cornerstone of, I don't want to say lad and chav culture, but I felt like it thrived in a time where that was also within the zeitgeist.
Well, let's put that into a nicer sentiment.
Okay.
So, the Streets really rose to fame when garage was huge on the scene, when rave culture was at its peak. Rather than it being chavvy, it's when raving culture was at its highest and people were going to underground raves around Birmingham, around major cities, and this is the sort of music that people would listen to. However, I'd say this less so much. This was towards the end of the sort of garage scene when Craig David and those sorts of artists were coming through and kind of making it too mainstream for the people to really enjoy.
Yeah, I get
which is comical. Which is why this album in particular kind of moves a little bit further away with some tracks, away from the garage scene and towards a more sort of pop-centric, ballad-esque type of album.
Now, I imagine that's something you've had more experience with kind of contemporaneously, if that's a word, at the time, because I was super not into this kind of stuff. So approaching this with fresh eyes is what I am trying to do. It's interesting looking at the career of Mike Skinner and looking at where this album came out, because this is the sophomore record. The original record was also a breakthrough for him and was very different to the kind of garage music that was coming out around that time. The contemporaries of which, I think this was the same kind of era as the So Solid crew, and I hate that song so much. Their one song, I know they probably had several albums. They had one song, let's be real.
I saw them live, they were pretty good.
Saw them live?
Well, what's left of them anyway? The what part isn't in prison or dead.
Ah, right. The mostly solid crew.
Yeah.
The fairly solid crew.
Kind of solid.
This kind of spongy crew. With this, though, it was critically lauded. It was commercially successful. It was a massive hit, 4 times platinum. That's not a small feat for somebody. And sometimes we get it correct and sometimes we don't. But this is very well documented to have been made in A flat. This is a true bedroom album. It was 2 bedroom albums back to back. I think that makes Mike Skinner an interesting voice in not only at the time, but kind of looking back at it and seeing that realistically, this is as close to a working class album, as Mitch said in his comments, as you can get. This is a guy who funded this album with the success of the previous album. This is his investment and his baby, and it's still considered probably one of the greatest UK albums ever made by a lot of outlets. So I was excited going in. Where were you when we went in?
So I've already got a lot of playtime on this album over the years.
Okay.
I was a huge fan of The Streets growing up. I know that I had heavier music taste back in the 2000s, but I still secretly went and listened to some not so heavier music away from my friends. So this was an album that I very much loved as a kid. So it was great to see it come back. And I think it's safe to say this is probably the most popular album that we've reviewed so far.
God, I don't know about, certainly in terms of records sold, I imagine, yeah. I don't know about streaming. I don't know if it, because obviously Blonde will have done better at streaming than sales. But,
oh, yeah, I'm not talking streaming. I'm just talking about accolades.
Oh, yeah, no. We're talking, did he win the Mercury Prize or was he just nominated for the Mercury Prize? But like, he's the guys. I say it as because it is Mike Skinner's project. I talk about him mostly. Obviously, he's not the only contributor to this record, but already just a beloved figure within the British music scene. Do you want to give us a bit more background? Because I'm sure there's going to be some interesting stats and figures about this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we need to go into like the history of the album before we start giving opinions on it. So this was actually the second album, as you say, from the English rapper and producer Mike Skinner under the music project Streets. Released on 17th of May 2004, so has just celebrated its 21st birthday.
We're old.
So this album can legally drink in America.
It can.
It's actually being listed in the book of 1001 albums you must hear before you die, and it's classified as a rap opera.
Yeah, we'll get more into that this is very much a concept. Accidentally a concept. I was doing my kind of research before we came into this. I was watching an interview with Mike Skinner, and he said there was not the intention to make a concept album. The intention was to tell a story. He'd been reading script writing books before going to start recording the album in his new London flat. It's a shame it's not a Birmingham flat like the original, but you know what? We can't all have the high life, can we? So I found that very interesting, that this has not been approached in the same way that I think a lot of the garage music at the time was approached, that was beat heavy, that was leaning on, kind of previous acts. I know that the kind of influences it had at the time would have been more towards 90s hip-hop, so you're talking like your De La Souls and your Wu-Tangs and stuff like that. And Mike is not doing that. He has decided to shun, rightly or wrongly, the American influence and is focused entirely on a British album. And I don't mean in a horrible way. I mean in a very homegrown way. And I find that endlessly fascinating. Sorry, I completely interrupted your info dump. You carry on.
It's all good. It's great hearing your feedback on it. As a pair of fresh eyes, it's nice to hear somebody else's viewpoint. For me, it's difficult to have those sorts of... I wish I could go back and listen to this album fresh, because it is it's just so different to everything else that's out in the media at the moment. And whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally, it works as an album. Anyway, back into the stats and statistics. Stats and
stats.
Same thing.
Give me them stats.
I'll give you them stats and stats. So this album debuted at number 1 in the UK chart and went on to spend 17 weeks there.
That's a long ass time.
17 weeks at number 1.
Have we had any album that successful?
Not on this show.
No.
It remained in the top 10 for 19 weeks, top 20 for 25 weeks, and impressively lingered in the top 100 for over 50 weeks.
God damn, that's impressive.
Singles such as Dry Your Eyes, Fit But You Know It were massive hits, and Dry Your Eyes also hit number 1 in the UK singles chart.
That's the bit that I never understood, right? Because I could have sworn that Fit But You Know It went to number 1. And moreover, that it was the lead single, and it did the best out of all of them. And it's Dry Your Eyes. And I'm like, this just, like the Mandela effect. I was like, no, but Fit But You Know It was everywhere. Dry Your Eyes wasn't everywhere. That can't possibly.
Dry Your Eyes was everywhere, but it was on the different stations.
Okay. Right, gotcha.
So that was the difference. Fit But You Know It was on your Heart FM, really localizing radio here, I don't know. But Dry Your Eyes was more on sort of smoother stations, and
it is interesting to see where it was being picked up.
Different demographics responded differently. That's why it did so well overall, because multiple generations were listening to the same album and having a different response.
That makes sense.
So going back to your awards, it didn't win the Mercury Prize, but it was nominated in 2004, and it was also shortlisted for Best British Album at the Brit Awards.
It's clearly a very celebrated record, which leads us quite nicely into us celebrating what we liked about the album. And I got to tell you, up front, before we go into specific tracks, I am surprised at what I heard. I think I'd categorise The Streets as loutish music played for people on package holidays who only go to other countries to not experience any culture.
Well, I thought you'd have that sort of mindset about the album, which is why I expressly told you need to sit and listen to it in one, because it would completely change your viewpoint on the album. Having heard the singles in passing over the years, if you sit and listen to just the singles, you'll have a very different response to if you sit and listen to the album as a whole. If you sit and listen in one sitting, it is a telenovela. It is great. Telenovela without Deli. It's great.
It's a
definitely
novella. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. We'll create a new term for it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a novella, but it's a very different experience of what I'm trying to say. So for all you listeners out there that like to take part and listen to the albums after you've listened to the podcast, definitely try and get a good hour spare where you can just sit and listen to it in its entirety, and you will have a very different experience if you just sit and listen to individual tracks.
If you do what I do, which is you've only heard Fit But You Know It and Dry Your Eyes in isolation, they sound, in isolation now, they sound really weak. They sound like songs that barely use a sample. They sound like songs that aren't really plumbing any great depth. They sound like songs written by somebody who needed to scroll the lyrics on the back of a post-it note whilst on the way to go and get his gyro. And all of that is true in the narrative of the album, which you would only know if you listen to it start to finish, and then the picture is painted. And I will say off the bat, that is what surprised me the most. I didn't know this degree, and I'm not going to say it's plumbing the depths of human emotion. In fact, I like it because it isn't. I like it because it isn't meant to be a grand biblical opera. It is meant to be a pastiche of a lived-in experience of working class life, told through the lens of somebody with financial troubles, relationship woes, drug addiction, and general kind of relationship, not just with women, but also his friends, anxiety and paranoia. And it genuinely feels like it comes from a place of finding the everyday drudgery to lift up to something greater at the end. And maybe that's spoiling too much about the flow of the album. But, it's 20 odd years old, 21 years old. You've probably heard it. I'm the weirdo. I accept that I'm the one that's odd in this situation, that I'd ignored it for this long. So, giving it a fair shot, you get a lot more if you go start to finish. And I just am kind of amazed that it's more a poem than it is a rap album. And I think that's the bit. I think Mike Skinner would disagree. I think he quite liked to be called a rapper. And I don't view it as a rap album. If you view it as a piece of poetry, a piece of spoken word set to contemporary music, I think actually all of its kitchen sink, Ken Loach, kind of Alan Bennett style qualities make it so much more interesting.
Well, it was so ahead of its time as well. Around 2004, we were looking at very random releases like Kanye's College Dropout, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance.
Was that year?
That year, yeah. American Idiot by Green Day, Franz Ferdinand's debut album, Hot Fuss by the Killers. So we've got some very random albums. How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb by U2, one of the worst album names I think I've ever heard, because I would not trust Bono to dismantle an atomic bomb.
No.
Sorry, just wouldn't. But yeah, very different to any releases that were coming out at that sort of time, and it is a form of modern poetry.
Well, all of those examples you listed, those are from the American lens, the American perspective of the early 2000s. So for them, that's a comment on 9/11, the Bush administration, and, you know, the beginning of the turnaround on African-American relationships, especially in the case of that particular album from that artist we now won't name twice because of the things he's doing now. But that's where the Streets differs. And I think that's what makes it so much more interesting. Whilst everything else was a dour reflection on the decline or the seeming decline of the Western world in the early 2000s, this is not meant to be a rundown or an indictment of 2000s Britain. It's meant to be a fly on the wall. And it's kind of got that. There's a film that was in 2009 called Fish Tank, that when I think about the album, when I listen to the album, that ultra real kind of boggled view of a dysfunctional Britain that doesn't attempt to bemoan it, but only to document it is kind of where I'm sitting on it. And I'm putting a lot of effort there into describing, I think you are really fit. Which, like, the vernacular is there. It's all there. It is all a true reflection of the stuff that people were doing and saying and living through at that time. Mike Skinner just found a way to commit it to an elongated story. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed, which I'm pleasantly surprised that
it is quite rare to impress you with a music release. I have to admit, like, throughout everything that we've listened to, 9 times out of 10, I've been able to look you dead in the eye and know exactly what you're going to say before you said it with most of these releases.
And did you predict any of that?
With this one, I thought you'd give it a good shot and you'd still struggle. But the fact that you've sat there and you've listened to it, you've took everything in, and from what I can assume, you've enjoyed the listening experience.
No.
However, before we go into our opinions,
okay,
I think let's finish off for the facts and figures and tell you a brief sort of catch up on the story of the album.
Okay.
Because as we say, it is a different experience if you just listen to the singles. You get Fit But You Know It, you get Dry Your Eyes, Blinded by the Lights, and Could Well Be In, which on their own could be quite weak track. But when you put it into the actual novella, as we're calling it, it all works really well as a linear story. So the whole premise of it is the main protagonist loses a grand protagonist. Sorry, I can't speak. It's late.
Good old protagonists.
For anybody at home that hasn't got video, because we're not recording this on video, I'm currently giving Mike 2 fingers. But they lose £1,000 or £1,000 if you're not from around here, and it's about his journey to recoup his money, but also to try and recoup his relationships with his girlfriend, his friends, and his addiction to partying and drugs.
It's basically it. It is in essence, as I said, this view into a standard at the time, struggling working class British man who will have all of these issues. I wonder if the album is to some degree semi-autobiographical. I can imagine that this is the kind of stuff that prior to releasing the first album might have been something that Mike Skinner had actually gone through.
Can you name the first album?
I can. It's original pirate material.
Yes.
You're listening to the Streets. I listened to a bit to try and get a sense of
Ariel.
You know what I watched, actually? Because I didn't sit down and listen to the first one, because that could be another episode. I watched the Electric Proms where he performed hits from original pirate material and Grand Don't Come for Free with an orchestra.
Wow.
And
did he do Memento Mori?
I don't remember.
It's Latin. It says, we must all die.
Oh, lovely.
I told him for a while. It was a crock of shite. So goodbye, bye, 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 bye.
Do you like the first album as well, out of interest? Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Again, I didn't listen to the first album, so I don't know. I listened to a little bit just to get a flavour of where it had come from and what the progression is here. And I gotta say, I do think that musically, and I'm only talking about the way that it's been put together and whatever's been sampled, I think there's something more interesting about the composition on original pirate material, but not in every track. And I think there's some interesting lyrical compositions on original pirate material that are very cool, but not on every track. So we then look at what lessons were learned for A Grand Don't Come for Free. And I think the key here is consistency. It might not be something that track for track I would choose to put on, but as you go through the whole thing, it is incredibly consistent with the way that it structures the songs, the way that the samples are used, the kind of the forming, like the only exception to this, and we'll come into it in the worst section. Pick up this for me because I will forget. I want to talk about could well be in the worst section, but there's very few examples in this record where I go, this doesn't feel like this belongs here. I think everything feels very curated and very considered, and all lends towards the greater narrative in this one, more so than original pirate material, which felt like a collection of, from what I had listened to, a collection of ideas and experiences formed to make an album rather than a story that the music was put around. You know what I mean?
Original Pirate Material was more a traditional album, where this is more of a concept album.
Yeah.
In as many words.
And I don't want to hand out the cheat sheet to just to get in an unskippable verdict on this show to go, just make a concept album, because I'm worried that we do it. Although thinking about the ones that we have given unskippables to, I don't think any of them are concept albums. So, okay, it's not a cheat sheet. What I'm saying is it worked a lot more for me. If you are going to be a storyteller, if you're going to be a modern day Chaucer, then tell a story. Don't tell me snippets of a story that do not fill in a full narrative. Whereas I think even though there are inevitably going to be moments that are missed from this, you know, there are threads that run between the songs, but they don't follow all one after another. There's action missing, but it's all inferred. Lyrically, he's thought about the things that happen between the songs. And to be able to get that by not having it is a fucking skill.
It is.
And that's why I was so surprised.
The fact that you can continue the story in your mind between tracks, like, we'll get into it later, but there's one track where it kind of becomes obvious that he was away with his friends and is telling a story to another one of his friends about his debauchery while on that holiday. And you kind of, even without him actually saying it, you know what's happening, you know what's happened, and you know the sort of pretense of how he's communicating it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just so interesting as an album format.
It is. I'm conscious we're 25
minutes into the recording.
We haven't actually said best track yet.
Best track.
You know what? I've come round on Fit, but you know it. I think in the greater context of the album, I think being more high energy and, yeah, I know it's not an actual guitar, it's a sample of a specific riff, but it's put to such great effect that within a garage record that also feels like a spoken word album, you can also have a bit of an indie hit. And I think seeing it perform live fucking helped. So I think it really brought me round on, actually, I do think it's very good. But if there was something that was going to jump that, it's Empty Cans. And we can't talk about why it's so good, because it's the literal finale of the story. And that's what's frustrating.
We'll cover that later.
Yeah, we'll do that later.
I completely agree. I think after we've covered worst tracks, we can go back into Empty Cans and discuss it a little bit more detail.
Perfect.
But yeah, I love the fact that he has the lyric, wondering whether to have a burger or chips or what the shrapnel in my back pocket can afford. Like, there's no songs that talk about getting a burger from a kebab shop.
Yeah.
And there's a severe lack thereof, those sorts of songs. It's
interesting you say that, because when we were about to wrap up, I'll say it now because it just seems relevant. It didn't feel like there was an album like this prior to it, and it certainly doesn't feel like there's been an album like it since.
This is an encapsulation of British culture in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's a time capsule. It's what Bo Burnham's Inside is for the COVID era. if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Like that special, I call it a movie, could not have been made under any circumstances, and it perfectly shows off the zeitgeist of that time. And this feels like that for music in the 2000s. You can kind of tell where I'm leaning with this, but I liked it more than not. Let's talk about one that I can actually discuss, because I really enjoy the opener. I really enjoy It Was Supposed to Be So Easy. I think that's what contributed to me having more positive things about the album, because I was surprised at the way that one was put together. I enjoyed the weirdly more orchestral kind of tone to it. I enjoyed the consistent failure. It's not characterized as a failure of the person. It is characterized as a failure of just... It's the very British, when things go wrong, we just go, shrug of the shoulders and...
On to the next thing.
And that's what the song is. It's an encapsulation.
just on to the next thing.
Yep.
On to the next thing. Fucking hell, on to the next thing.
And the problems are so small and insignificant. Didn't return a DVD on time. Couldn't withdraw any money properly.
Couldn't tell his mom he couldn't make it for tea.
Yeah.
He just has to grab his savings and hurry. Didn't say what he was hurrying for. He just had to grab his savings. Which is when we find out that his grand has gone missing.
And the impetus for the whole record. But the bit of all that... Sorry, very quickly. Very, very quickly. I love the line about... the sheer panic as he's losing his phone. I'm like, we were doing that even in 2004.
Oh, yeah, because phones are tiny.
Yeah. Oh, fuck it. Oh, here it is.
The thing I love is that you look at that track today, and a grand seems like such a small volume of money compared to the 2000s. Admittedly, if you some people will lose a grand and not bat an eyelid, like in the current economy, where back then a grand was like, oh, it's monumental money. That's like 6 months of savings.
Yeah. That was an aspirational amount of money at that time.
To have a grand just sitting there,
yeah,
great. I could live off that for a month or two.
I can't get anybody to fucking come round and sniff my farts for a grand, let alone do any work on the fucking house.
Yeah, to be fair, I do charge more than that.
This is a hyperinflation nightmare we live in. And what I liked about that, all of these things going wrong, even including this monumental thing of losing such a big amount of money, and the takeoff from that is, I mean, it starts at a narrative of paranoia, which I think is interesting to delve into on the later tracks, but on this one, it's just this very jovial failing upwards, and I really like that it doesn't affect, other than the "it was supposed to be so easy" thing, which feels a self-parody anyway, and I quite liked it, and I connected with it. We've all had small domestic things go horribly fucking wrong in quick succession, and you still get through it and go down the pub afterwards.
Exactly. That's the thing. His whole thing about it is, I probably would have achieved more if I'd just stayed in bed. And it's such a British way to go about it. Like, everything's gone to shit. Oh, well.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Just carry on.
Bet it was raining and all.
I know. Probably fell over, did it? So I've got 2 top tracks.
Go on.
Neither of which you mentioned.
Interesting.
It's interesting. I've got Blinded by the Lights and Wouldn't Have It Any Other Way.
Okay.
Which I can see by your facial expression, choices that you probably wouldn't have made.
Definitely not Blinded by the Lights.
So, Blinded for the Lights, for me, he has encapsulated what it feels like to be in a nightclub with the choice of music and the way that he narrates the entire song. For me, that is what the nightclub experience was like when we used to go nightclubbing when we were younger. Very much where's everyone gone? Why am I on my own? I can't get a signal. 'Cause back in day, there weren't signals. Before 3G, whoa, you had to go to the door and hold your phone in midair to just try and get any inch of signal. And there wasn't phone data. Oh, no. Did I have WhatsApp?
Granddad.
My phone had an aerial. It could receive text messages, but it couldn't send them.
Did your aerial extend?
No, but it did light up. I bought a Poundland one.
Oh my God, why did we do that to ourselves? And why did we pay so much money for shitty fucking ringtones?
Jamster. Oh.
There is an interesting video on YouTube about Jamster. It's like one of these fucking 5-hour essays. And it tells you just how much of a fucking scam that company was.
Oh yeah, they made a fortune.
I don't know who it's by, but I watched it the other day. It's very good. Watch that video. That it was a weird time. It was a weird old time.
Oh yeah.
Now it's interesting because that song feels like it's more encapsulating the kind of the back end of UK rave culture, which I have no fucking experience.
Oh yeah,
with.
same here. And that's what I was going to go and say. I haven't got an experience with hard drugs.
No.
So I can't speak from that side, but for me, that's what drink in a nightclub feels like anyway. Like, you get so paranoid when you're on your own and if your friends leave you alone. And the part of that song I love the most is that there's just one line which is like a look forward to the future of a future song from the album. There's a massive giveaway, which is a blink and you'll miss it sort of moment. And it's like, when you listen back to the later track, you're like, oh wow, he picked up on that. Damn.
Yeah. It's interesting to have an album that we've got to have spoilers for, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We've never had this. This is so interesting. It feels more like a film review than it does anything else.
And then wouldn't have it any other way. For me, it's a true sensation of what a relationship feels like. So it starts off with that, I don't want to see anyone but my partner. I don't want to spend any time with anyone but... Actually, maybe I should go around the pub and see the lads. Maybe I should go and do this. Oh, I could talk to them and say, oh yeah, I'm just going to go out for a bit. They'll be fine with that. And it's like that whole conversation that you have in your head before saying, oh, I'm just going to go out for a drink. When you're thinking, are they going to say that's okay? Or are they going to say, no, you should stay here? And that's what I love about it. It's just that whole conversation that is probably happening in his head while he's just sat there having a drink and watching the telly. And plus, the outro singing is just, I got one packet of Rizzler over there. It's nearly run out.
All over the place.
The clipper needs a shake. Ashtray needs a I just love that because it's just so... It doesn't need to be there, but it just amplifies the song. And
it's a playful
warming.
energy, yeah. Warming, yeah. I think that's exactly it. I think that fits the tone of the song. It's not my favourite. I don't dislike it as much as Blinded by the Lights because, again, I don't connect with that because I don't have that kind of experience. But everybody's been in a relationship. Okay, your mileage may vary, but I get it. I get where it's coming from. I think it's interesting that it's that degree of domesticity, if that's a word, for what feels very fresh and current in the narrative of the story. And I think that's got a lot more to say about maybe the protagonist's desperation, or perhaps the desperation of people who have very little to cling on, as was the experience and continues to be the experience of the lowest paid and most overlooked people of British society. And for it to be this thing that you cling on to so tightly, which comes back to bite him at, the tail end of the album, which makes it all very interesting, and perhaps that's a spoiler. But there is a very strong thread of that this is the greatest thing that will ever happen to me. This is it. This is it. And
this is my only opportunity. I need to make this work, otherwise I'm done. It
also clouds like the thread of trying to find out what happened to all the money. It completely, like, the narrative just goes into tunnel vision.
Yep.
And like you say, that informs all the blink and you'll miss it moments in the lyrics from that point on to the rest of the album. That is a choice. You have to plan that shit out, and that's what makes it all the more impressive.
There aren't novelists that can do that.
No.
So the fact that he could write an entire album and contain all these narrative themes, where you'd have some of the best authors out there struggle to get this level of like theming, it's just mind-blowing. So we've covered good tracks.
Yes.
Least favourite tracks.
Which one did I ask you? I asked you to remind me which one. I think it was Could Well Be In.
Yep.
I like it. And I like the lyrics of seeing this thing on ITV and having all these British things. They repeat the chorus a bit too much on that one.
I agree.
And I think that felt like runtime padding more than anything else, because I didn't think I needed to hear, I saw this thing on ITV the other week 4 or 5 times in a row without a break to deliver more of the story. And that's kind of... Oh, and I don't like Blinded by the Lights, which we've already discussed. I don't connect with it. Anyway, that's all the bad things I wrote about.
Wow.
The rest of it was enjoyable to passable.
My least favourite song is Not Addicted. The song about betting on the football.
Oh, I quite like that.
So the only reason that I dislike, I wouldn't say I dislike it, I would say it's my least favourite track, is that it doesn't necessarily fit in with the rest of the theme of the album. It covers the whole desperation for money element where you can see why he's in such a foul mood when he loses the grand, because that's the sort of culture of the working class. Is this could be my windfall. If I put this 20 quid on this team to win this bet, I could win everything. Or, oh no, this is the end of days because I've just lost 20 quid on the horses. I can see why it fits in there, but I'd just say it's probably one of the weakest songs on the album for me.
I think musically you might be right there. I think in terms of the lyrical content is where I'd have to disagree, because I think there is something to be said about the proliferation of the betting culture in the UK, which other countries like America do not have because there's much stricter laws. Whereas here you've got your choice of your Ladbrokes and your, I can't think of any others. Coral, is that one? Coral, and all sorts of places where you can go and put Betfred, Bet365, where you two can have laryngitis. It's on your screen. Nah. Sorry, I have to do that every time I see it. It's just Ray. Is it Ray Stevenson? No, Ray Winston. It's one of them. Anyway, betting culture here is mad, and you can just put piddly amounts of money on anything at any one time. What I liked about it and where it's sat in the album is that it's midway between all of the kind of the relationship falling apart stuff. So it's kind of one of the highest points of the protagonist's story, because he's got that bravado. He's well in with the girly fancies, and he's going to recoup all this money by going and putting on a bunch of spurious bets for sports he doesn't even understand. That is like the height of somebody's confidence. They can very confidently do something that they have no concept of whatsoever. And as somebody with crippling anxiety, I don't share that. And what I do like, though, is that so totally describes the bloke. And when I say the bloke, I mean, like, that is a guy who is jack of all trades, master of none, who reckons he can do everything. You know, with the right circumstances, I can do anything. And it's this point of the story, before it all comes crashing down, before the self-doubt sets in, before you've got all that. Yeah, you would think that. If you're riding high, you're thinking, fuck it, what's a tenner on the cricket, which I don't understand? Why not? That's what I really appreciate about it. I get it. That bam, bam, bam has the potential to be a trademarked twatty little riff. I get it. But I do think in terms of kind of a mirror image of Fit But You Know It, kind of the other side of something that he was trying to achieve. Because like that's he's lost the money and there's nothing to look forward to except he's just in with his girlfriend. And then Fit But You Know It is like, I kind of almost feel like the grand might have been for a holiday, which is what Fit But You Know It and the track following that chronicles in the story. Which again, it never outright says that that's what's going on.
But I have to admit, it's probably the best name of a track that we've had so far.
Which one? Fit But You Know It?
No, the one after it.
Is it such a twat? Yeah.
What a song name.
It's such a twat. And I enjoy that is a one-sided phone call of a song.
That we don't hear the response of his friend.
No.
Right? It's just literally... And you pick up the fact that it's a phone call because he loses signal and starts shouting at the phone mid-track.
And that's how he breaks up the chorus and the verses. And it's just... It's so
we could go on about every track on this album, couldn't we?
We really
if we
could.
had time.
Have you noticed how the bit where we're talking about the shit we hate has ended up talking about stuff we like? If you hadn't figured out...
I think you're a fan.
I didn't think I was going to be. And I caveat all of this with going, it's still not my kind of music. I still don't know if I would put on individual songs by themselves. I don't know whether I think it's musically accomplished or... It's either... There's two thoughts in my head every time I listen to it, which is, this is overly simplistic. This is not doing anything great. It's just a beat to vibe to and a poem, which I like. Or it uses the shoestring nature of the composition and the sampling, not only to harken back to all of the influences that have come out of garage music, which go way further back than anybody could kind of really understand in one track, to tell a bare bone story because it's not meant to be complicated, because it's kitchen sink, because the progression of Chaucer to Ken Loach to Mike Skinner makes sense as someone who chronicles the lives of the working class. And it's just different mediums, and it's the same thing. It's just saying you have to keep these stories alive, and otherwise they will be erased by a greater power. Now, I don't think Mike Skinner's trying to say that. I don't think he's trying to make a point about erasure. I think he's trying to make a point about raising yourself up in the best circumstances that you've got. And that's what you get, full circle, in Empty Cans. Let's talk about Empty Cans.
Empty Cans. So, it's a double track.
Yep.
Best way to say it, it's a double track. It is essentially what is happening in his mind. There are two situations. You can either go down the path of violence or happiness.
Yep.
And it explores both. And I love the fact it goes down the one story and we have that amazing track of he's grabbing my ear. It's essentially, he gets in a scuffle with a TV repairman. There's no better way to put it. A TV repairman comes to his house, tries to help him out, and he gets in a fight with him, saying he's trying to rip him off. And they have a fight, and he beats him up and leaves. And he sat there thinking, I'm on my own. And then you get a nice like reverse sound, like rewind sound from back in the day of VCRs and tapes, back when you used to have to rewind your stuff to go back to Blockbuster. And then we get the nice side of the story with much more upbeat backing vocal or backing track with nice diddly piano.
It's the mirror image of choosing isolation versus allowing yourself allowing you to put yourself on your own pedestal. It's very interesting the way this is presented, because obviously there is no actual like choose your own adventure. You don't skip to a certain track to hear a certain ending. It's all one thing. Though it also does kind of feel like a choose your own adventure at the end. It's like, do you think that he was entirely betrayed and is therefore entitled to be embittered and isolating himself? Or do you think that all of this is a moment and you can all move past it? Because the album doesn't lead you in one particular way. Dry Your Eyes is not a song that is going, this is awful. The song is trying to tell you there's plenty more fish in the sea. It hurts now, but it won't hurt in the future.
There's more to look forward to in life.
This is it. The album hasn't informed you to be bitter, but you can put yourself in, again, who I can only assume is Mike Skinner in the album, and gone, now, if you'd experienced this, would you have told that person to fuck off? Would you have gotten into a scuffle because you were so angry? Or would you have tried to move on and put your best foot forward and embrace the people around you? The album doesn't present one or the other as the correct ending. It just presents both outcomes. Some people will feel that way and some people will feel the other way. But obviously, there's the extra sting of wrapping up the story in the quote-unquote good ending, which I really quite liked. It had fallen in the telly. It's very good.
Back in the days when tellies had huge backs.
Yeah, when you had to take a big panel off and it didn't just immediately fucking break.
So I think if we're 46 minutes into the recording...
We've got to stop. I'm
keen to hear your verdict on this one. I think I might know what it is.
It's going in that... No, of course it isn't. I genuinely was very surprised. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm not sure I would listen to it back to front several times by choice, but I challenge you not to do it at least once. So I don't think... you said like Florence was a one-time only deal. I'm not sure whether this is a one-time only deal or whether you actually do need a couple of times to get the full story. But a story is always worth hearing, and I think you should hear this one. So it's going to be unskippable for me.
So, a couple of months back when we started this, I told you there was an album on this list that is one of my all-time favourite albums.
It's not this one, though. It'd be funny if you just blinked around and you go, I hate this.
And this one skipped. No. This is up in my top 5 all-time favourite albums.
No way.
So I was beyond happy when Mitch sent this through, and I've had the best time revisiting this. So I'm happy to say I'm putting it in the unskippable category as well.
There you go. Is that two on the bounce now? Is that 2 on the bounce?
It certainly is.
We haven't had that yet. We might be getting a bit soft. Well, congratulations to Mike Skinner and to Mitch, who came together to get another unskippable album eventually on the wall that I'm pointing to. I do want to actually do that. I want to find a way to get some albums on this wall. And it'd be a literal wall of fame.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Does that mean I have to have the skipped albums? I only have small walls.
You got a bin outside, don't you? All you got to do is buy the album that we don't like and
lob it in the skip.
Straight in the bin. Yeah.
Wait.
I did not think that was going to happen. So I think this is the first. I think this is kind of the full circle moment from Blonde, where I was like, I'm trying my best, but it isn't gelling. And with this one, I'm like, I'm trying my best, and I'm seeing the good. So I'm very happy about that.
As Mike said, I encourage everybody that wants to have a listen to try and listen to it as a singular track, because the story is incredible. It's so well written. There are so many little nuances that you won't pick up on at first, and you'll be like, wait, did that just say that? Did that just say that? Without spoiling any of the other story. But there are so many different elements of story in this album, and it just gels so well.
And it becomes, now how many unskippables have we had? Is this the fourth or fifth?
This is the fourth.
This is the fourth one. So your album 2 could join those ranks, but all you've got to do is send them to us at skippedpod@gmail.com. That's SKIPD, drop the E, pod@gmail.com. Or you can use the form on our link tree, which is linktree.ee. I hate that URL. /skippedpod, same spelling as the email address, to send yours in. And let's see if yours can match Mike Skinner and get on that wall. And thank you very much for joining us on this episode. We will see you next Wednesday. Bye, everybody.